But I did something quite bold, and I said I think the biggest thing for the next 10 years will be AI and personalized learning. So that's what I'm going to talk about today.
Okay. Does anybody know who this is? Air France. Well done, mate. This was the HR director from Air France. This was only last week, who nearly got murdered by his own employees.
He had to flee over a fence. He got his suit ripped and shirt ripped off his back. And let's not imagine there isn't any problems in our world. You know, in the 30 odd years I've been in this business, L&D and HR has gradually become the department that protects the organization against its employees. That's what this guy was doing, really. You know, L&D has become the department that forces rather odd courses down your throat at times. Even in the e-learning thing, that flat, linear, text graphic, multiple choice question, little quiz at the end stuff. I'm just back from a big conference in Las Vegas. I went around the whole conference and I saw nothing new. It could have been the same conference from 20 odd years ago. And I think we have to get away from this one size fits all idea, or we're going to be in some trouble. You know, speak to the people out there. Do they love the e-learning courses that you're shoving at them? Do they really love them? Speak to the people who are forced to do diversity courses, compliance courses, money laundering courses. Far from loving the stuff, they sometimes loathe it.
So it's a trap that we have to start thinking about escaping from. Now, when I was in Las Vegas, I met some very interesting people there. I don't know if you heard the Serious E-Learning Manifesto thing. 4 guys, pretty big shots in the States, came up with the idea, oh, let's try and escape from this trap that I've just described there. Okay, Clark Quinn, Will Farmeier, Michael Allen, and Julie I've forgotten her second name. And it was interesting. They said, how do we escape from this bubble of fairly flat, fairly linear e-learning, that when you do it, it feels as though you're wearing a suit that's about 2 sizes too small for you. You know, you feel like you're on a bus and it keeps stopping everywhere, you're not too sure why. It eventually gets to your destination, but all too slowly. Actually, what you want is a car. You want to set off and get there a bit quicker, in a more personalised fashion. And they came up, I think, with the wrong manifesto, but their heart was in the right place. This is all the old stuff. But really, I think this was all the old stuff as well, to be honest. Performance focused, meaningful to learners. This is just general abstract stuff to me, you know? I said, well, where's the concrete side of this? You know, where's the personalization in this thing? I quite like this one because I think AI in particular has a role to play. Space practice, we've ignored that for long enough. Now, as someone who built a business and, you know, likes to build businesses and invest in them, I'm not a technological determinist. You know, I don't like all tech. You know, I wrote a blog post a couple of days ago about how the whole education community in Britain is absolutely obsessed by devices. You know, whether it's whiteboards or iPads into secondary schools, which I think is an abomination. You know, if you give the average 14-year-old $2,000 to spend, the last thing they would buy is an iPad. But that's what 50-year-old men like to think that 14-year-olds would like all the time. You can't do a damn thing with them. So innovation, in a sense, has to be sustainable. And one of my propositions here is that if you do want this to be sustainable, your e-learning stuff, you're going to have to think about AI. Because Google's sustainable, Facebook's sustainable, Netflix is sustainable. And they're all sustainable because they use smart software. They don't deliver flat stuff. And essentially they use good maths, they use AI as a background engine. We've got to take that stuff, we've got to take some of that magic dust from them and get it into our world, or we will be in trouble. Even more than that, about 2 years ago, do you know Graham Brown-Martin? Anybody heard of that name at all? It's a big guy in education anyway. But he had a conference where I was chairing the session and he got Jimmy Wales. And I think Jimmy Wales should get a Nobel Prize for what he's done. And I got to speak to Jimmy Wales and I said, why don't you take this flat Wikipedia stuff and turn it into active learning? And then he said, that's a bloody good idea, but I don't have the time. I'm just busily building Wikipedia. So I went away and raised some money, and then I thought, I had this sort of idea that AI in particular, or smart software, might be able to create e-learning without development companies. Imagine that. Imagine not paying 15, 20 grand a pop every time you wanted a bit of e-learning. I went away and built one of those now. And so it's not that AI is a good thing, it may absolutely revolutionize your world. We may find that AI produces e-learning, not just enhancing. I'll come to that in a moment, okay? Now, the first thing for me is always to look at consumer tech. You know, big numbers matter to me. If you're investing, you want to make sure that big numbers of people are going to use this stuff. And I think that's why all this device-driven stuff is a bit odd. You know, actually speak to a 13-year-old if you're going to shove gamification down their throat, rather than giving them some crap game that they almost treat with contempt. You know, that's what a lot of gamification is in the e-learning world. Because we have clearly had this proposition, I think, of massive pedagogic change in the minds of learners and almost no pedagogic change in the world of training and education. So almost every learner uses Wikipedia, Google, you name it, Khan Academy, but almost hardly anybody in the learning world or the educational world uses it. In fact, most of the blowback against Wikipedia comes from educationalists. How weird is that? The biggest knowledge base on the planet, and the people who hate it the most are people who teach. Pretty weird. You know, it's like bankers saying I hate money. Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But that's the sort of weird world we're in at the moment, because these things are big news for learners, you know? They really do use this on a daily basis. And that's what we've got to start paying attention to. And there's one wonderful thing that's missed in the technology here, and I think that's the humble hyperlink. So when Tim Berners-Lee came up with the three big standards, you know, HTTP, HTML, and URLs, boom, these three standards, fantastic. An invention bigger than printing, I think. Absolutely amazing. But what really mattered was the hyperlink. Why is Wikipedia so beloved? I was in speaking to the head of the NHS. He has a $5 billion budget for training all doctors, nurses, and health professionals. And I showed him a study showing that 87% of medical students use Wikipedia on a daily stroke weekly basis. And there was a medical student in the room who said, no, that's wrong, that's definitely wrong. It's absolutely 100%. It's absolutely said, no, I've never met a medical student ever who doesn't use it regularly. And because it's a predictable sort of destination for them, structured knowledge, the hyperlink allows them to move through the content, unlike traditional e-learning, and I want to come to that because I was in Brighton, I live in Brighton. I was in a shop called Tiger. You know that shop? Yeah. I was wandering around and there was a pile of these and a shelf, and I thought, what sort of idiot weirdo would buy a rubber brain? You know, there were hundreds of them. I said, who would buy that? And I thought, I am that weirdo. I'm probably the only person in Brighton who actually wants one of these things because I give talks at conferences about learning. You should be in retail. You can sell shit to anybody, honestly. Now, this thing is interesting, right? We've all got one. There's something unique about this brain. It is a network. It's the most sophisticated thing in the universe, the most sophisticated network in the universe. And it only accepts things it likes. It's inattentive. It forgets almost everything you throw at it. Ebbinghouse's learning forgetting curve. And it's sensitive. You know, it wants to be treated well. It has existing knowledge, and if you don't play to the existing network in this brain by meshing in your network, you're going to lose it. It will lose attention, and that's what happens in classrooms and university lectures, and often in e-learning. You lose it because you're not playing to the web-based brain. We do not learn from linear media. A lecture, flat stuff. It's not a video recorder. There's no theory of memory that says that the brain remembers things in that flat linear fashion. We don't remember things alphabetically or hierarchically. It's a network and it's highly algorithmic. If I asked you to add 23 and 12, you can all do it in your heads because you've got an embedded, now hardwired algorithm which you learned at school that allows you to add those two numbers together. The brain is massively algorithmic. In fact, it's algorithmic on the day you're born. Read Chomsky. Okay? When it comes to artificial intelligence, as I was saying, I think we're in the age of algorithms. It's part of your world already. I was mentioning Las Vegas. All of these slot machines here, the reason these guys never win is they all have algorithms in them. They have a payback mechanism, which is about 97% by law. It's actually maths that will determine the people's outcomes there, and nobody wins in Vegas. Well, a few, but almost everybody loses because of the maths. So gambling was originally driven by this stuff. You'll have seen this stupid sort of movie, Hollywood view of AI, iRobot, Chappie, it's one of the better ones actually, Her. I like this movie. It started getting down to Turing's test type level. This guy falls in love with this girl online, and then suddenly at the end of the movie discovers that actually the online girl has over 1 million boyfriends and that he is not conscious and he's being played, as it were. Ex Machina, I particularly recommend this one because they did get really serious AI academics involved, and the script is a reverse Turing test. It's extremely sophisticated. However, it's all to naught. About 10 years ago, I bought one of those little robot vacuum cleaners. You know, it was shit, never picked up anything. Recently, I said, I'll see if things have improved in the world of robots. I went out and bought another one. It was shit, never picked up anything. Don't imagine that robots are going to be invading your world soon. They won't. Nobody in AI seriously believes anything that's said in the movies. You know, if you really work in this field, you will make a big distinction between weak AI and strong AI, and we all know we're in the weak AI world. And it hasn't come from nowhere. AI is a massive phenomenon because we've had 2,500 years of mathematics. This hasn't popped out of nowhere. Euclid was the first to really define a proper algorithm. Then we have Aristotle's syllogism and logic, really, which is extant in all the world of coding and so on. Al-Khwarizmi, who gave us the great Arab scholar, gave us the word algorithm from his name. And then we have a whole load of probability theories, right through from Fermat here, Cardano-Bernoulli, and Bayes, the English pastor. This took centuries to build, this maths. And it's only now that we're beginning to realize the possibilities of probability theory and AI in terms of what our brains do. But the big breakthrough was in the year 1956. That was the year both myself and Steve were born. This is the year that AI came of age, and there was a big meeting in Dartmouth College, an Ivy League place in the States. I went to this university, and that's how I came into this industry, actually, my experiences there. And McCarthy led this thing here, and it took off. But there was a problem. It was largely theoretical AI on the page, as it were, and the pages fell sort of stillborn from the press because the computing power, the data wasn't there to fuel it. You know, it was like a rocket with no fuel in a sense. So funding disappeared by and large. Then, of course, the World Wide Web comes along. Suddenly, you have a rocket, which is the maths, but you have masses of fuel. Unbelievable amount of fuel. Real data. So if you look at Google, it has smart algorithms. Actually, one algorithm, originally PageRank, a whole squad of them now, but it's fueled by data. That's the magic fuel mixture between the two. It's a rocket with fuel. And I think there's a big mistake made in thinking about AI and adaptive learning, and that you have to mimic this thing completely. No, you don't. When you work in the AI field, some people would like to create consciousness, for example. You might imagine that that's necessary to create something that teaches other people, but it's not. We didn't learn to fly. We didn't build airplanes by mimicking birds and allowing them to flap across London into Heathrow. We wouldn't have got anywhere if we had copied that. AI is not necessarily about copying what this does, but doing it better. AI already outperforms this in many, many areas. So it's about inventing new technology that doesn't mimic consciousness, but does it better. And a good example of that, of course, is Google. We all use it. It's fundamentally a bunch of algorithms fed by data. And massive. I think it's the most significant pedagogic shift in my lifetime. Google. Everybody uses it, it's almost impossible. But if we want something, pretty much we ask it a question, it comes up with an answer. PageRank is the first one, loads else. Google recently bought this company based in London, DeepMind. Nothing more than 5 algorithms, machine learning algorithms, incredibly smart. This guy went in at a hotel in London, shoved a camera and a computer down in front of a couple of old Atari games, and it learnt those games. Not only did it learn how to use those games, it outperformed any human being in those games. So the machine learning algorithms are starting to come of age here. And Hassabis, who was a big gamer guy, $500 million, Google splashed out $500 million on 5 algorithms, because this will determine the future. The driverless cars, you name it. Okay, then we have Facebook. So you're not only the ads, but also your newsline are fundamentally driven by smart maths that tries to personalize the experience for you, and I'm glad that happens. I love Facebook. Online dating, I won't ask you to put your hands up if you've enjoyed that particular service. But if you really go to eHarmony, some of the bigger ones, Match.com and so on, they're using smart maths to try and take data. And there was how many couples who we introduced together, and how often did that lead to long-term relationships, marriage, kids, and so on? You can actually gather and harvest that data to make the service at the front end that much smarter and personalised for you. That sounds good to me. There's hardly any area in sport now that is not massively affected by this approach. So mathematics first really came into sport through Moneyball and baseball in the States. I advise you to look at that film and also read the book by Lewis. but it's also in soccer, basketball, you name it. Manchester City has 5 full-time maths-based analysts. Sorry, but I'm wrong there, 13. Man City has 13, Liverpool have 5. Oh, who's top of the league? What a surprise. If you're using Amazon, of course, you'll be surprised at the percentage of sales at Amazon come from that little trick, and you don't hardly notice it at all, but the maths is at work on your brain saying, what did you look at last time you were here? What other sites have you looked at? How long did you look at that book you didn't buy last time? So sometimes it's the negative data that's more important in order to try and sell you stuff. And do they sell stuff? Hell yeah. You know, that's look at the success of this, and it's also true Netflix. They were more formal. They put a $1 million prize for some predictive analytics algorithms again. A couple of young guys won it. 75% of their sales, the clicks on the things you watch on Netflix, come from the recommendations made by that algorithm. It doesn't look like it, doesn't feel like it, but you're being really, some would say manipulated, I would say helped in making your choices. I don't mind that stuff at all. You know, I want it to know what I like. I don't want to thrash around with 1,000 movies, hoping for the best. And then, of course, we had Watson, which managed to defeat, basically an intelligent predictive analytics type engine that managed to beat 2 world champions in Jeopardy in the States. If you've been to educational conferences, you'll have seen this quote. I think there is a world market maybe for 5 computers. It is actually bullshit, because Watson never said this. It's like any Einstein quote you see in Einstein never said anything about education. They're all made up, like a lot of things in educational conferences and slides. The quote is bullshit, it never happened, but the quote curiously has a point. Because as everything has drifted to the cloud, we do actually have roughly 5 computers, but just all, these massive servers are owned by Apple, Facebook, Microsoft, Google. It's all sort of coming down to that in a way. And that's an important point here, because intelligence is now cloud-based and you can buy it by the pound. So you can actually buy Watson services. This is mostly to do with the financial world. It's not really much to do with the learning world. But let's come down to learning for a minute, and adaptive learning, because that's why you're learning professionals, that's why you're here. And I've split this into 3 things. Using AI or adaptive learning before, during, and after, okay? So filtered, I think you're a really good job on that front-end analytic stuff. You're just before people set off on a learning journey, you're doing some smart diagnostics and whatever, and I wholly agree with that. I think that's a valuable thing. But some people have built these systems on the back of learning styles, for example, which is bullshit because they don't exist. And because they don't exist, there's absolutely no predictive power in them whatsoever. Okay? You can't predict anything meaningful from a vacuum. And believe me, learning styles don't exist. It's bullshit. It's about time L&D got their act together and swept this out of the Broomer theory that has been hanging around for about 30 years now. Every single academic report that hits the deck says, don't do it, it stereotypes people, it's wrong, there's no scientific validity, and still we hammer it out at our learners. And what do you do when you do learning styles questionnaires in L&D? You do it, and then you give them the same old PowerPoint or classroom thing anyway. So nobody's ever really taken it seriously in that sense. You might think that something like Myers-Briggs might be a more useful thing, that's a diagnostic upfront thing, but Myers-Briggs is basically a Ponzi scheme, and there is absolutely no scientific validity in the theory whatsoever. And that's the truth of the matter, folks. It's a Ponzi scheme. These 2 girls were not psychologists. They picked up a bit of Jungian theory, the wrong bit I should add, translated it into some questionnaires, and Myers-Briggs is popular because if you get a qualification in Myers-Briggs, you can sell it to other people. That's what we call a Ponzi scheme in business. So don't do that either. Filtered, I love, and I've known these guys for a while. And I'm not just saying that because I've been invited to speak here. I haven't been paid. But I'm here because I do genuinely believe this is a good company. They do something very, very different. They're focusing on the individual. Really what the individual needs on a learning journey. Not only that individual's needs, but aggregated data from other people who have done similar courses and so on. Okay, so you have this notion of making that journey a bit visible, which I quite like when I first saw it here, that notion that you're flagging up to the learner. The trouble with AI when you use Google is it's like an iceberg. All that stuff underneath you just don't see, it just works on the surface. And for learning that can be tricky. The danger with the AI approach is it's all invisible and they don't quite know how it's working. And I think there's some honesty here in making that side of things visible here. Okay, so during courses, first of all, this is big, and I was glad when this came out The Gates Foundation in the States are big funders in education. And 2 years ago, they put this adaptive learning right at the top of their list in terms of spending money. And they've just whacked out $20 million on 6 projects in AI in the States. I've been involved heavily with that over in Austin, Texas, with Arizona State and so on. Because this notion of educating everyone uniquely, which I think is the right thing to say, is so important. This is why most people fail. We don't educate them uniquely. This idea that you have a network and you take people through personal learning journeys through that content is so important and obviously and intuitively right to me. So a traditional maths course would be this, flat curriculum, boom, 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 boom. New curriculum, lots of dependencies here. You do not do multiplication unless you really do know how to add and subtract. I used to teach maths. Believe me, most kids fail maths because they're taken on a level where they should not be. They have not mastered. You need 100% competence in addition before you do multiplication. We play around with this stuff. One size fits all, and they fall off the conveyor belt. So we have some institutions. University of Edinburgh, I think, is probably the leading one in the UK, doing massive amount of adaptive learning. ASU, the biggest in the world. Courses on everything from American history to biology to maths. Okay. This is an interesting one. Hitachi, it's a good friend of mine who runs is in the L&D there. Hitachi Data Systems. He has a vision of getting rid of courses altogether. Isn't that a weird thing? Imagine getting rid of all courses. What he says is courses are a construct built by training people and educationists. The human brain that isn't born expecting courses. Of course not. Actually, what we want is to acquire new skills, almost like a playlist. It's a bit like music, you know. You start to like this and then you like that. You know, you're building your competencies as you move through. So he has a vision of a network of knowledge where every individual learner in the company just vectors through that stuff using AI or adaptive learning techniques. That's quite smart, I think. I quite like that vision. Where we're no longer going on those compulsory 3-day courses, the induction course, the exit, blah, 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 blah. We're actually doing what the human brain expects, and that's just moving forward slowly, picking up the skills as we go, like a playlist. And if you want to see something that's quite smart, that's in the language front, we have Duolingo, 100 million users. Remember what I said? I love big numbers. If you think language learning should be delivered, how many kids, after going through 5 years of French in a British school, can actually even order a sandwich in France? Hardly any. And we think that's the way it should be taught? That's just bullshit. 100 million people learning this online with adaptive stuff? That's not bullshit. That's real people. Okay? Another interesting one is the semantic side. This company, Narrative Science, it was one of Roger Shank's PhD students came along and said, listen, I think I can build some software that writes sports reports, journalist reports. So he rattled a few out, then they compared human reports, the journalist report with the baseball report written by the machine, and the human beings couldn't tell the difference. In fact, they started preferring the robot-driven ones. Isn't that weird? Why would they prefer the AI-driven report? Because the AI engine knew exactly what the weather was like. It knew the stats for every single player in the school, right down to the last detail. No journalist ever knows that amount of detail, and it could make inferences in a way that no journalist could. It's quite weird. So when people are reading this, oh, wow, this is amazing. Sometimes it can be even better. And so with this tool here that I've been working on, we've just got our first big contract on this thing. Here you just input a bit of text in here. It could be a compliance document, it could be a textbook, it could be anything you want. Bung it in that window there, and it will automatically create e-learning for you. And this is another species of e-learning, which is around semantic analysis. So NLP, not that shitty NLP that we know in L&D, neuro-linguistic programming, which has nothing to do with neuroscience, linguistics, or programming. That's another Ponzi scheme. I'm talking about natural language processing. So the semantic approach to the web, where you're actually looking at text and trying to identify what it actually means. You've got OpenNLP, Stanford's resources, all sorts of things you can use there. And what this does, if you type in measles into this engine, it goes to Wikipedia, props out the measles stuff and creates e-learning on the fly for you. Okay, not only that, if you struggle with rubella, it will create a link in red rubella, you go off to Wikipedia, it creates more e-learning in real time for you. So this thing actually makes e-learning on the fly for free. Forget your £15,000 an hour on bespoke e-learning. Okay. And we're now using this with all sorts of things like YouTube videos and so on. So that's another aspect of AI for courses during learning. And then there's the after. We have the automated assessment type stuff coming through in AI. If only I had a few more papers to grade said, no teacher ever. Who loves marking? Everybody hates it. Every academic in the world I meet hates it. Do they do anything about it? No, all they do is bitch about possible, the possible degradation of their job by technology. If you want a life, embrace the bloody technology, don't fight it all the time, Surely the automation of assessment should be a smart thing. And this is what I will show here, because I used to teach maths. So this is a standard question, GCSE type stuff, clearly trying to test Pythagoras' theorem, find x. Hardly any kid, by the way, would say 4 squared is 16, 3 squared is 9, 9 plus 16, 25, square root of 25 is 5. Most kids go, that looks about 5 to me. Or they know 3, 4, 5, or they measure it. In fact, I'm 58 years old, I have never, ever used Pythagoras' theorem in my life. Isn't that weird? We force people to learn this stuff, and they will never use it in their entire life. This is interesting. Find x. Hey, here it is. X. I love this. I love it because I've employed hundreds of people in tech companies, and this is the person I want to employ. I don't give a shit about the kid who's locked himself away in his bedroom for 16 years and got a straight A. I want the kid who went, here it is. Smart, lateral thinking, a bit of humour. These are the guys who are going to function for me, men and women who are going to function for me. The teacher, big red pen, X, 0. We're assessing all the wrong things. And now we have a chance of perhaps doing it more sensibly. Then there's space practice. You will, I keep saying this all the time at these conferences, you will forget everything I've just told you. That's science, folks. 1885, it's 150 years of research. It just says, scientifically, you will forget everything I've just told you. In fact, before you even leave this building, you're way down below 50%. By the time you get home, you'll be lucky if you're up at this 14-20% level. That's fact. We're in the forgetting game, and the way around that is to shoehorn people up. So this is a squared descent, okay? In mathematics terms, and it descends faster at the beginning. So it goes out of that one logarithmic. What you have to do is put the same thing, effort in the other way around. So quite quickly after a course, an hour, a day or so, and you have to reinforce the learning to shunt it from short to long-term memory. We know this with absolute certainty. And yet, we have, in the 32 years I've been in this industry, completely and utterly ignored it. Completely and utterly. Why would we ignore such a basic principle? Why would you do that? The reason is, the learners walk out the door and we don't have them. That's fair. I'm not blaming anybody. Once they go out the classroom or the lecture hall, we don't have them. But you do now, because they've all got a mobile phone in their pocket. You have an umbilical cord to them. So if you know what they did know and didn't know, you can widen this out to various levels of knowledge and interleave the stuff cleverly. You can start reinforcing it well using this is algorithmic techniques. Using hopping between the subjects so they don't get too bored and too predictable. And if you miss a week, if you've ever been involved in space practice, your Duolingo, you go on holiday to Greece for a week and get drunk and you don't do anything, you come back and go, oh God, I've got all that German to catch up on. The solution to that is to take the missing chunk and spread it like jam across into the future so that you don't get cognitive overload and it seems amenable to you as a user. You can do all that using smart maths, okay? So what does AI give you? What do algorithms give you? I wrote a blog called 9 Things Algorithms Do That Teachers Can't. Of course, you went apeshit without reading the blog. Mostly teachers. It does ignore gender, race, social background. Nobody knows that I'm a Scottish guy, with an accent. It doesn't know you're a woman. It doesn't know what your sexual orientation is. It doesn't matter to maths. It frees us from cognitive biases, and we all have them. That's what brains have. It never gets tired or ill or a hangover. It does things that brains cannot. It personalizes the reporting. It prevents this sort of failure that you see in learning. And this is an interesting one. Build a course using this stuff with good machine learning stuff, and it will automatically improve the course. So very famously in an early Coursera course, they had a maths question, an algebra question, that was just simply faulty, and about 2,000 people got it wrong. Of course, the software knows that that's a statistical oddity, and it knows the question's wrong. It's not that 2,000 people didn't know the maths. So it can actually start to improve your courses, and some of these courses reset themselves without human intervention. And of course, it's massively scalable. Okay? Right. Last slide. Way back, Bloom, everybody's probably heard of Benjamin Bloom, and most people know Bloom because of his tripartite distinction in terms of a taxonomy of learning. I'm not too sure why he's still hanging around, because there've been plenty of other it was actually quite weak, his taxonomy. There've been better ones since. But we do have a habit in L&D of hanging on and fossilising theory. Kirkpatrick, 50-year-old Ponzi scheme, wasted time, all that happy sheet crap. Myers-Briggs,
I could go on NLP, I could go on and on and on with the 50-year-old bits of theory hanging around the train-the-trainer courses. And we're doing people a disservice by hanging on to that because better stuff has come along. But Bloom did write a brilliant paper, Two Sigma paper, showing that there was a massive increase in learning. This was just a straightforward presentation like a lecture. This was more mastery learning, and always a wee bit more active learning in terms of learning over assessment and so on over and above the lecture. And this was one-to-one learning. In other words, if you do one-to-one tutorials, I used to do a lot of this with kids in maths, you get a massive increase in retention and efficacy. And that's what this promises. That's what AI and adaptive learning promises. This massive leap in productivity and efficacy, which is why I think ultimately it will be the future of e-learning. Thank you very much for listening.